Hello everyone, I'm Dr.Chulok and I welcome you on our webinar about trend in megacities. So I think that we'll try to identify different challenges, so maybe windows of opportunities that we'll face in the nearest 5 or 10 years. I hope that this webinar will be useful for you, so please don't hesitate to ask questions, so use all our information for your own personal development. I'd like to show you a few funny pictures. So it's Christmas time, and I guess it's normal to have a few funny pictures before we start our interesting discussion. But anyway, all of them have very, very important suggestions for our topic. And I'll start with this one. So here are a few forecasts or foresights that you will compare with our reality. We'll start from very profound company Mercedes-Benz, which made a forecast more than 100 years ago that the world demand for the whole cars will be maximum 5,000. Why? Because there's no available chauffeurs. Now everybody is talking about the driverless car, and it's normal for us maybe in 5 years to use them. Another interesting forecast is a forecast made around 70 years ago that computers in the future may weigh no than 1.5 tons. Now you all have such bracelets, so everybody is using smartphones, and they're very, very easy to communicate with everybody all around the world. And Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, told us that I think that there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. I guess that all of us have even maybe 2 or 3 computers at least. So, do you think that all these foresights and forecasts were made without global trends? Well, see. This is a typical city car, a view from 1970s. Take a look at it. So, what can you see? It looks like a plane. And please take a look at the right of you in the beginning. It's attention incoming fax meeting. Please tell me, do you remember what fax is? Have you ever seen a fax in real life? I saw it, but I'm not sure about you. So this is how people in different spheres, I mean from business, in science or in government, how they predict the future, how they think the future will be. So let's take a look deeper, again from 2000, well, from more than 100 years ago. So it's a typical Aerocap station that could be in a megacity, and they think it will be in Millennium. I don't know, is there anybody from Millennium generation here on board with us? But anyway, just take a look. What can you see? Flying cars. Everybody is working, but the architecture is look like Paris. You know, if you have been in Paris, it's look like there, an Aerocap station. Why I'm showing you these pictures? Maybe you'll ask. I show them because now in modern days we have lots of different forecasts and numerous analytical reports about global trends. And what I'd like to share with you is a quintessence, a core of such trends. And I think and I motivate you to think of the stress as critically as you can, because in such a huge amount of information, you should be really critically minded. This is very important. So another 2 pictures, and we'll switch to our reality. So this picture is how the construction industry will look like from the same era. So it's more than 120 years ago. You see the architecture, he is sitting here, and if you can take a look, here's a plan. So he has a plan, this is very important, I guess. You push a button and everybody is working. And now please take a look at a picture from this year. This is how World Economic Forum thinks a megacity with Industry 4.0 will look like in the nearest future. Once again, please find any differences. But seriously, now with how Industry 4.0. This is a really global trend, and in megacities coming closer to us. What could you see? So 3D printing here on board, prefabrication, modular construction, advanced augmented reality for sure, a real-time collaboration, 3D scanning. So everything is digital, everything is in Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, how we call it. And we see how people are trying to make a cyber physical system in our reality. I mean, when physical systems and digital systems are collaborating and are combining very close. But I think it's a very funny comparison if you take a look at 1090 here. So how a modern world is looking like? If you are talking about global trends, we should understand that the world is completely digital. And this is one of my favorite comparisons. What was happening in a minute last year now? You see how Instagram, Facebook, Tinder, Netflix, they are enhancing and they are moving forward. So their followers, the number of their followers is growing. It's really interesting. What will be, say, in 10 years? Will it be the same growth, the same big chains like Google, like Facebook, like Amazon, or maybe we'll see how they change dramatically. And I think that in the end of our webinar, you'll make an answer of this very tricky question: how to make it in a real life, a view from nowadays to Megacity 2035. A megacity for sure will grow in domestic product, and according to some estimations, Tokyo could be in the lead. And if we're talking about population, it maybe could be a Gong or maybe Tokyo, some Asian cities. But to see how the map is moving. So once again, we start from a very simple picture, then we go from industry 4.0. See how digital world is changing, and now what can we see? We see how the planet is moving forward. We see how cities and the conception of megacity as it is moving forward in this map. Just take a look. I think it's really very interesting where Mexico is, New York. Maybe we'll find the cities from our listeners right now, and there's a web link. You can just forward it. What I'd like to show you and what I'd like to share with you is the idea that now a megacity as a conception is being challenged by very dramatic trends. First, we see how mega trends and external challenges should be taken into account. Selectivity. Which field should we support? Should we support nanotechnologies or biotechnologies? Should we support IoT or should we support, say, CRM? Should we support driverless car? Should we support drones? Or maybe we have to support everything, but where's the money? And this is another problem, another external challenge about concentration. Should we support an institution of itself or a research team? Who should we support? What about the sustainability? We can raise our expenditures, but the problem is, will them be sustainable or not? If you remember, around maybe a few months ago, Stiglitz, it's a Nobel Prize winner, he told us that GDP per capita is no longer a good proxy, a good indication about comparison different countries. So what stands before GDP per capita? Maybe social stability, ethics, or ecological stability. They are very tricky questions. For sure, we should understand what institutional framework is about intellectual property rights, transparency, business climate, and agile ecosystems. We should move from mobility and sustainability and understand how the sustainability will evolve in the future. And the last but not the least, an external challenges for sure is smart governance. How should we find between hard and soft modes? This is very important if you take a look at the agenda in the whole megacity now. And we are moving, and this is my perception, that we're moving from megacity, just a megacity, to megacity 2.0 with science and technology foresight. The expectations for foresight activities in a megacity is about how to get an evidence-based and proofs and transparency for all your researchers. The most interesting question is what if? What if we use a megacity as a conception? What if we use a biohacking? What if we'll face a hacker attacks? What should we do? We should look and search for weak signals and emerging disruptive trends, like jokers, There are some incidents with a very low probability, but very high impact. And it's very important not only to look at global trends that are obvious, like, say, climate change, but I'm not sure that it's so obvious as you think. And in a few slides later, I show you. But anyway, we should understand what are the weak signals are and what could be the jokers for this. We should go for priorities, because for megacity conception, we cannot go for everything, and all our decisions should be smart. But what should we do? I'm a researcher by myself. What should we do? What should be the response from researchers to these external challenges and expectations? For sure, there should be multidisciplinary and multicultural research, integration of quantitative and qualitative methods. And a few slides later, I'll show you what we do in the higher school of economics with big data analysis. It's intelligent foresight analytic systems that we use on board. It's big data analytics. You should engage all stakeholders on board, and this is very important because you should not get rid of people, and all stakeholders should be engaged, and you should understand what communication and networking activities could be in your megacity. So this slide is very important because it sets the rules and the framework of a megacity conception. If we go back just for 1 minute and see how a conception of megacity were evolving, starting from Mercedes-Benz forecast, getting back to a view from a city car, then what will be a cap station or just a city life 120 years ago, what the construction industry would be, and expectations about the future from nowadays. You see that all our perceptions here on these slides are very important, not to make mistakes about misleadings in projects and foresights. So now I'd like to present to you foresight as a conception that is very important in the megacity activity, which is a process of systematically trying to understand what the future is using scientific base, and trying to manage, or maybe a rule, or maybe take a challenge of a global trends. And the foresight should include 5 phases, starting from pre-foresight, recruitment, when you understand what's the team, generation, research, action, and renewal. So my perception is that if you want to look in the future, if you want to move to global trends and try to deflate challenges or deflate threats and try to increase your windows of opportunities, you should use these 5 phases of a foresight. You should go into the future, but take into account that you're in the nowadays, and the action is now. So this is very important. How to act now. Take these 5 stages: pre-foresight, recruitment, generation, action, and renewal, to understand what the future will be, and go back. If you see this in gray arrow, and go back to understand, are you in the right position or no? In help of this, I should like to present you the changes in megacity conception and the policy mix. So the policy for Megacity 2.0, let's call it like this, should be evidence-based, should be communication and not networking friendly. It should engage all stakeholders as we said in possibilities and expectations. But what are the global challenges for the whole foresight activities? We see how society is moving forward. We see the new economic paradigm. We see how changing national innovation systems are trying to be more and more important in our life. We see the battle between globalization and localization, and all trade wars that we see between, for example, China and US and other countries is really evidence for such global trend. We see how global values and chains are moving forward, and a sharing economy, I'll tell you about this a bit later, sharing economy is really changing the global value change in the megacity conception. And for sure, increasing influence of new technologies is very important. So you see how conception of a megacity is moving forward from just a city for people, from a city like an ecosystem for people, business, and an environment. The city should be efficient. this ecosystem should be friendly, but can we construct it in the nearest future or not? This is a challenge for you who are listening to our webinar, I guess. I'll think that such presentation of a global trends and the merging of a global trends will help you at least to identify key trends that should be taken into account. Are they threats or are they opportunities? Well, this is a tricky question. Let's take a look for environmental, for example. Climate change. Everybody thinks that this is a threat. But as you know, in some rural areas, in some regions, climate change opens windows of opportunities for agricultural sector, for example. For sure, loss of biodiversity is a very, very huge and it's a threat for everybody. But if you think about technological trends, let's take a look here. Maybe for research activities that could help to tackle such challenges as the loss of biodiversity, it could be in the window of opportunity for research activities. You see, the system is balancing. There are no pure threats or pure windows of opportunities. But what you should do as researchers, as an active stakeholders, and really people who are citizens of a Megacity 2.0, you should take into account 6 global trends, at least 6 group of global trends that are here on our slide: economical and structural, social, environmental, political and institutional, technological, and trends in values. So these are very important trends that constitute all our activities in a global city. From social point, we see how demographic problems and urbanization are moving forward. Everybody thinks about public health, and I hope that your governments are increasing expenditures on public health. But the point is that a lot of diseases could be solved by you and by yourself if you just take a look at you. Do you go for exercises tomorrow, or maybe the day after tomorrow, or every day? It depends on you, not on your government, not on me. And you can do it by yourself, as well as food security and energy security. So in a sharing economy, which is a very, very high and very huge trend in economic systems, we see how food sharing is raising. Not only car sharing, for example, or sharing of other activities, but also food sharing. And I think it could help food security as well. So you see how different global trends in the megacity conception are correlating with each other, how they could influence on each other. So what you should do, if you're a researcher, I strongly recommend you try to use a big data analytics in all this picture, because for sure we could use different correlations, we can use different models. It's like demographic models or econometrical models for climate change, or it could be a lot of different investigations. But using big data is a really trend which I strongly recommend you to make your personal window of opportunity, not a threat. What we've done in high school economics, we constructed a system which we called Intelligent Foresight Analytics. I4 is an acronym. And now it includes, you can see it, it's a real number, more than 350 million different documents. So more than 30,000 documents daily are uploaded, and there are lots of types of different documents, starting from analytical reports to some legal documents and getting back to patents and research articles in Web of Science or Scopus. We use a neural network semantic analysis, and it's a really big system which was included last year, 2018, which included by OECD in top 5 list of intelligent foresight system in strategic analytics. When I was preparing to the seminar, I said, okay, Fora, please give me a semantic map for global trends for Megacity. Well, frankly, we don't have a voice recognition yet. So I called my colleagues and said, okay, guys, I need a few slides from my Fora for such very important webinar. What we've done. So here is a semantic map of the whole global trends that constitute the idea of megacity as itself. Each picture, each cluster means a cluster of global trends. Each point here is a global trend as itself. So you see It's not top 10, it's not top 20, it's not an intellectual fast food when everybody is saying, please give me a ranking. It's really semantic landscape of global trends, which could be investigated deeper, deeper, and deeper. And I'll just show you. Of course, our time, unfortunately, is very limited. So I show you how you can use big data analytics, semantic analytics, in exploring global trends. So let's start from a blue one here, if you can see it. There's a smart city conception, smart home, and it's very close to cybersecurity, sharing economy, digital industry, 3D printing, and fintech, if you can see it on your left. So these are global trends that constitute the whole conception of a mega city as itself and a smart city as itself. But if you go here, there's a well-being, demographical trends, population trends that are very important because we're not getting younger. And according to different forecasts, in 50 years, the percentage of old people will rise dramatically. So maybe a mega city will be a city for old people, but all of you will be old in 40 or 50 years. Or maybe your body will be old, but your brain will be still young. So this depends on medical trends, which you can see here. There are some trends about technological, and maybe including 3D bioprinting here, which is also very important. There's trends about different climate change and air pollution. You know, in the megacities, the problem number one, and we see how different cities like London or Barcelona or Moscow are moving forward to green cities, to cities with very friendly ecosystem for all who are living there, not only people, but our nature as well. But what trends with climate change, what trends are connected with it? We see it's like digital social networking trends and trends about human genes, which is also very important. So once again, please take a look at this picture. I'd like to share with you a message that it's very important when we're talking about the global trends, not only to see the whole structure. Here's a structure of a global trends that you can face, like growing demand for food or economic globalization or emergence of new renewables or energy systems. But here are specific trends which are constructed by intelligent Foresight analytics system. And if you use such smart system on board, it's easier and more efficient to make good decisions here. So we have a few minutes, and I'd like to show you in details some global trends which are very important, I think. The first, just one global trend, is the climate change. So you see here, this is a picture, a semantic map for the whole global trends, and this is a cluster. If you just go inside and have a deep dive of that, what we see is a climate change scenario, climate model, which is very important, and all different trends like emission, for example, or like greenhouse effect or greenhouse impact, all other trends that constitute. There's a big trend. The bigger, the more influential the trend is, like climate model and climate change here. And for sure, environmental change is also a very important trend for a megacity. So big data analytics could help you to see how all the trends are constituted, and there are also clusters here. So you can go inside, a deep dive of all trends. Then you could ask, what about the people? Can we identify research or maybe business teams who are trying to deal with this trend, where we can find the windows of opportunities, or maybe threats? And I can tell you, okay, Afora, we could do it. We really could do, including identification of researchers and people. So here's another interesting trend, the Internet of Things. According to different estimations, items in Internet of Things, well, the number is more than all citizens in all cities, even maybe more than the whole population of the world. So it's a tricky question. Internet of Things is inside us, or we are inside Internet of Things. But as you can see, very strong correlation, if we take in semantic terms, is with Internet of Things and smart city. And for sure, a megacity should be smart. It should be connected to big data analytics, to future of internet, and different types of computing. But if you think that this is a final picture, it's not true. If we just take one step back, we see that Internet of Things is connected not only with a smart city, but also with virtual reality. Google Glass could be a very nice gadget in the megacity, and augmented reality. So as you remember in my previous slides when we just start our webinar, these trends like digital and trying to see how real life, so how cyber systems and physical systems are collaborating. It's a very interesting trend for everybody. But it's not the final picture as well. Here's the final picture. Final picture of Internet of Things include smart city, artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable technology, and cryptocurrency. So this is a semantic map just for one global trend megacity, and you see how it's connected with all different trends and points. So I strongly recommend you to stop consuming intellectual fast food and go for more systemic, more profound, and interesting research activities and possibilities in the global trend agenda. Now I'd like to share you another foresight, another forecast for global trends, products and services that comes from Russian S&T Science and Technology Foresight, which is included in the top 5 world's foresights last year by OECD. And there are different directions that constitute the framework of a megacity: ICT, information communication technology; medicine; biotechnology; nanotechnology, which are widely used in the construction industry, for example; use of nature or rational use of natural resources; transport and space; and energy. You see, all these areas construct the framework of a megacity, and the products that are here, you just can take a look, could be really future of a megacity. Maybe space elevator will be in all megacity. Maybe we'll start from Dubai or London, Moscow, New York. I don't know. Maybe your city when you're living. Energy and different types of renewables and cells is also a very huge trend in the megacity conception. If we go for nanotechnologies, for example, I strongly recommend you to take a look at self-assembling different systems, which is very profound research activities is being started now. For biotechnology and medicine, you can see it right now. It's lots of sensors, smart drugs, maybe genetic passports. But what's about the privacy? If we're talking about passports on your gene or on your blood test or maybe on your some organs, what about the privacy? Are you sure that in Internet of Things economy, it's here, all your privacy will be guaranteed? And it's really a huge challenge for everybody, for governments, for business, and for society as well. I'd like to show you how this conception could be realized, at least in Russia, when we see the challenges like, for example, climate change or spread of new environmental pollutions. We can find the windows of opportunity. Here are descriptive statistics for different expert analytics, and also you can identify different threats. What I mean, the challenge doesn't mean that it's a threat or window of opportunity. A challenge is a challenge. So in the megacity conception, I strongly recommend you to think of how to use all the challenges, not in threats direction, but in direction of opportunities. But to do this, you should go into global trends, into details. You should go into deep dive with big data analysis. And another interesting thing is identification of weak signals and wildcards, or jokers, how we call them. It's an example from 2014. We predicted weak signals, including 3D printing, for example, or different advanced energy sources, or as you can see here, about the brains and about the memory or all neural interfaces. We predicted it around 5 years ago, and now it's our reality. You could see how 3D printing, you can buy it in your supermarket, it's not a problem. You can see how neural interfaces are going deeper, deeper, and deeper in our life. What I mean that if we go for foresight activities in 5 stages, I hope you remember from 15 minutes ago, these 5 stages of foresight, you could predict with a very high probability the scenarios of a megacity conception, of the whole processes in it, starting from transport and getting back to life science, starting from to constructions and getting back to, well, to all your life standards as well. This is also very, very important in a megacity. And getting closer to the end of our webinar, I'd like to share with you different ideas and conceptions about how to constitute all the tricky questions that we have in a megacity and maybe basic trends. I think if you want to find your place under the sun in a megacity, we should be on your fridge or maybe working place. It's up to you. So we start from moving to a new production paradigm. Indeed, it's IoT of things, it's 3D printing, nanotechnologies, biotechnologies, convergence of all these different technologies, but they make a very interesting effect for the economy. They change the traditional global value chains. Uber, Tesla, Airbnb, Amazon, Google, 25 years ago, nobody heard about them, but now everybody knows it. And if you want to be an investor, maybe creator of a new wave of such companies, you should take all we're talking about global trends into account, because people who were in the lead of these companies, they were trend makers. They understand, they feel these trends and understand how they will evolve. After transition to global value chains, it's very important to see how the action economy is moving. We all know that knowledge is very important, and education is also very important, but it's not enough. It's not enough only to be an educated and highly educated person. It's not enough to know. It's very important to act. And combining your knowledge with your creativity and with your passion to act into megacity is also very important. And it's another conception of your prosperity here. Another 2 interesting things include changes in employment structure. Well, according to Web Economic Forum, millions of jobs will be lost due to robotization or digitalization, but millions will be created. But the question is how to find such profession or how to find such skills in a digital economy. I strongly recommend you not to make all your bets into profession, but to think about skills and knowledges that you take on board. Because you know, the profession is just a brand. The profession of a lecturer is more than thousands of years, but skills that constitute such profession and skills and your knowledge that make it efficient, they change dramatically. So I think that in a megacity you should think about your skills, but not about professions. And the last but not the least, the new education model. You know, in the Soviet period time in Russia, and it was the same in US and in other countries, in Finland, Germany, in Brazil, last century. Well, our mom and dad were talking to us. They told us, please go to a good university, get excellent, or how we call it, a red diploma, and all your life will be efficient, everything will be okay, you'll be a happiest person in the world. Now I understand that it's not enough to get your diploma once, even if it's the world best university in the world, like High School of Economics, for example. For me, you have to learn for your long life, and this is very important. So you have to learn all your life, change universities, change your skills, change your profession. The only skill that maybe could be on board with you will be a skill about foresighting your activity. So that's why I'm a director of a Foresight Center in High School of Economics. I think that this job and this profession will be for the ages. Three tricky questions that you have to tackle. The first one is when, because now the speed and the action and how you react on such challenges is very, very important. So the question is who will implement all this first. Another very important question is why, but not how. And we see how different approaches like technocratic or social humanist approach, futurologist approaches are balancing in all the sophisticated landscape of a megacity activity. But we really need leaders who could take responsibility for such balancing. And the last but not least question number 3 is who? Geeks between or maybe versus routines. So can you do in one person the whole company with all digital gadgets, with no people, with no team? I think that at least for 10 years, the team is very important for everybody. And if we talk about the team and if we talk about the future, so my perception and my suggestion for today, before we go to answering different questions, is very simple. You know, if we talk about the past life, or if we talk about what's already been done, it's more or less easy to see how the history was evolving, and we all are very wise when we're talking about history. It's not so easy, but you could speak about the future, but you don't know the future until you get in it. The most hard work deals with nowadays, with present. So I strongly recommend and encourage you, well, make a Christmas present for all of you. Think of your future. It's a megacity conception, including those global trends that we'll be talking for in such webinar. Think of threats that could be opportunities. Think of opportunities that you could use, and make your personal roadmap for such a future. Good luck. All right, so now we've got one question from Alex. I read it, if you don't mind. How can you imagine the life in 20 years? What will be normal for people in the IT sphere? What will be the main progress? Well, the global trends that I was talking about, we could switch to the slide. These are the trends. All right, here we are. So these are the trends which will constitute the future in the nearest 20 years for sure. I think that our life will change dramatically. For example, Japan plans to raise expectancy, very diplomatically, expectancy of a life for 120 years. And I think that our life will be digital. We'll go closer to nanotechnologies, I hope. I think that we go for outer space, not only like, you know, some research activities, but maybe the space elevator will be in our life like a journey to New York or Bangladesh. I think that IT people will face a lot of challenges because programs will write programs, but those who could think systemically and could design their thinking will be in demand. Okay, so this picture is for you if you want to be sufficient with all your activities in 20 years. Do we have other questions on board? Or you think that that's enough? Okay. Max, how can you comment climate changes and how it's possible to prevent when the climate change will really influence people's life? Well, it's a good question, and if you know, do you consider Moscow as a megacity? For sure. For this question about Moscow, I could tell you that for sure it's a megacity. And last year we've got an innovation cluster. If I type here, will we? Okay, so it's i.moscow. You can go on the site. It's an innovation cluster for Moscow megacity. And I think that in in technological block of the site, you'll find a lot of interesting about the megacity conception, because we, I mean, high school economics, we made a research part for such activity. As for climate change and how could we prevent it? Well, I think there are different ways. The easiest is to, it's here. I just show you the easiest way. The easiest way is to start from yourself. You know, it's the easiest way. If everybody will be ecologically friendly and think about our nature, so everything will be fine. But it's not the easiest way, unfortunately, for the whole governments and planets. So if seriously, I think that for climate change we should invest in technologies which could prevent biodiversity losing, which could prevent different pollutions, including nanotechnologies. And we in Russia have quite strong research and development in these spheres. I think that climate change, at least for 20 or maybe 15 at least years, it will be quite hard to rule or to manage climate change. But if we go for the area of futurologistic foresights and forecasts for, say, 50 years or even more, 60 years from now, there could be possible terraforming. And I hope maybe using the technologies of terraforming, we could prevent climate change and dramatically effects for the nature. And maybe we could make our nature as it was done or as it was given for us before. But between that, nanotechnologies, ICT, different models, like for Arctic, because it's also very important point of a climate change for Arctic area, and for sure starting from yourself in all our behavior. Right. Do we have, okay. YMAX, I'm interested in Foresight. Wonderful. Okay, so you could just go on this website. It's our institute, ISSEC, hsc.ru. It could be in English, so we have an English pages. And there's a journal which is called Foresight, the same. You can download it, and there are lots of different ideas there. I think that if you do your personal foresight using all these steps, that could be a really good present for yourself for Christmas. So indulge yourself with such foresight activity. Thank you. Thank you. I think that if you go onto from this slide using Foresight megatrends to your personal radar of Megacity, you will be here in the future. All right. So, any other questions? Okay, so I wish you a Merry Christmas, and I hope that next year will be a platform for your personal well-being. And if you'll be happy, the whole society will be happy, and the megacities will be happy, and me as well. Good luck.